Hey everybody, this is Marian Cowie Gowen.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date. And today I was made to watch Near Dark.
Yes, Near Dark. The part of the vampire trifecta, as I believe I was trying to say at the end of last week's episode. Couldn't find the word.
Couldn't think of the word?
Yes. Couldn't think of the correct word. I thought of a word. Near Dark is, of course, the 1987 Catherine Bigelow directed joint. Catherine Bigelow has had an extremely interesting and eclectic career.
Mm-hmm.
She's directed a bunch of little short films in between projects, but most famous, no doubt, of course, for Near Dark, but for Point Break. Swayze, the whole deal, the good Point Break, and Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. So
I'm sensing a theme of sweaty people.
Yeah, lots of sweaty people.
Yeah.
If for those who haven't seen it, which I wouldn't blame you because it's been very difficult to see for about the last 10 years or so, at least. Near Dark is a vampire western, pretty much. Bigelow and her writing partner at the time thought, what if we wrote a vampire western? And there had been kind of vampire westerns before that, but never like this. It just been like, in the 50s, there was a movie like, what if Dracula was also a cowboy? It's as silly as it sounds.
As in like The Count, but on the prairie?
Yee-haw! Like that. Like... Howdy, cowpoke.
How many cows are there? 1, 2, 3.
Let's count the cow. I'm going to suck your blood while you're counting. Yeah. So, like, this movie, I think, whether people would admit it or not, has been extremely influential throughout time. Things like True Blood and Dirty. I call this the first dirty vampire movie that I saw. Not that it was the first one. There were some other interesting vampire movies, but the first dirty vampire movie. Like, these guys were not living the life. It's not Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt.
Well, I was going to say, as opposed to the glam vampire, because these guys, did they ever get to take a shower?
Probably not.
Ugh.
And yeah, like even contemporary movies or movies slightly before this that depicted vampires in modern times, like Fright Night or like The Hunger. They were still like the vampires were still suave. Like they were still, they were still cool, like ultra cool. Like these vampires are cool in the sort of movie villain anti-hero sense. Like they're not cool in the traditional vampire way. But yeah, this is part of the 3 movies that changed the way that I viewed vampires, because I grew up, even though, I was born in the 70s, I still grew up with Dracula, like with that that's what a vampire is. Dracula might as well be like the species that vampires are. It's just, what kind of Dracula is he?
Yeah.
Oh, it's this kind of Dracula or that kind of Dracula. So stuff like, obviously Dracula, and then some of the Hammer films. I didn't see most of the Hammer films, but I certainly saw a few.
The what now?
The Hammer films. So there were the MGM monsters. These are the classic black and white monster movies of the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And then in the 70s, Hammer Films relaunched all of those characters and put on a series of Frankensteins and Wolfmans and Draculas. And this is where Christopher Lee played why is his name escaping me?
I don't know.
From Star Wars. You may fire when ready.
Still don't know.
Damn it. What is his name? Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing and all these guys in the 70s. That they all starred in a bunch of these Hammer movies, and Christopher Lee was Dracula many times and became very famous for it.
That tracks.
Yeah. So it's, but that was still a Dracula. And the 3 movies that I watched in my somewhere between, let's say, 8 and 12 years old, they really redefined that, were The Lost Boys, which made vampires cool and like made them cool teens. Fright Night, which brought vampires to like suburbia, and Near Dark, which made vampires dirty and like grungy.
Were they not dirty and sort of grungy in Lost Boys, or was that like in a teenage scruffy kind of way?
Right. They were dirty in a teenage scruffy. Like they were dirty in a threatening teen
but they
sort
still
of way.
bathed regularly, so not really that dirty.
Well, I mean, they lived in a cave by the underneath the amusement park.
I think I've seen it. It's been it's been a very long time.
If you have any doubt, we can finish out the trilogy of vampire movies. No problem.
I think we kind of have to.
Yeah. So at some point in the future, watch out for that. So yeah, this is one of those movies that it was hugely influential. It shaped the way that what I thought you could do with vampires, right? And I keep saying vampires, but they never say vampires in this movie. They very specifically don't say vampire. And they are very fast and loose with the rules. They don't go into any of the traditional rule stuff. It's just, here we are. This is what we are. This movie takes place across maybe 4 or 5 days, maybe nights. But the basic story is that Caleb, he's a country boy. He's a cowboy. He's riding and roping in the range and all that stuff.
He's the kind of country boy who still calls his father daddy.
Yeah.
That level of country boy.
And he's the kind of character, and I think this is one of the reasons why the movie works. It was like, he's likable, but he's kind of a dick. Like he's kind of,
he's played by Adrian Pasdar, so he's automatically, he's kind of a dick.
Sure. Yeah, but at the time you wouldn't have. That actor has earned that reputation.
That's
over
true.
The years.
I am saying this having seen him in Heroes.
Yes.
So,
and he's kind of a little rough around the edges, which is what makes you think that there's ever a chance that he's gonna truly turn. He gets bit by May, who is so he encounters this basically family of vampires. And May is their young vixen, and all the vampires have their way that they get their meals. Hers is that she's young and cute, and there's a approximately 12-year-old, 10-year-old boy who is super old, like the oldest in the group, but he was turned as a boy. A very Interview with a Vampire. He was turned as a boy. He uses his youthfulness. He fakes bike accidents. He asks for help on his homework. And May grabs him, seduces him. There's a whole like whirlwind thing with them. You can kind of tell like May is looking for something, and she thinks Caleb's got what she wants or whatever. And she turns him. And then there's a conflict with the vampire family. Like, okay, he's got to carry his weight. He's got to kill people. He's got to be part of this outlaw lifestyle that this family of vampires are living. And it doesn't really go that well for him. And in the end, his family comes looking for him, his dad and his sister. They find him, and they, in the weakest part of the movie, just sort of hand wave the explanation away that he comes up with the idea of getting a blood transfusion, and that cures his vampire.
Yeah, I was unclear on what exactly was happening.
It's the weakest part of the movie.
So the logic is, if the blood goes into your veins, it heals you, versus going into your mouth, it feeds you. Basically,
I think it's the premise. And again, this movie explains nothing.
Right.
I think the premise is that vampirism, or this particular strain of it, is a disease of the blood.
Okay.
And if you can replace all the blood all at once,
okay,
then the person is fresh, born anew.
So it's a completely like they essentially took out all of his blood and replaced it with So.
With the dad's blood.
His father gave him all of his blood. That seems unhealthy.
All of it. Yeah, no, just like the explanation, there isn't any, like, it's not like, it took 4 days and the dad had to rest and eat sugar cookies. There's nothing like that to explain
the little Dixie cups of lemonade.
Right. Like, there's nothing to explain how he got his blood, enough blood to transfuse.
Well, I thought it was going to be something like, well, you're a veterinarian, so you have blood on hand. But no, there was none of that.
Yeah, the cure to vampirism is pig blood. Replacing the human blood with pig. Yeah, so that's the weakest part of the movie by far. But that's essentially what happens. There's a whole lot of details in between. But yeah, he runs in with this vampire family. They try to assimilate him into their cult, vampire cult thing. It doesn't work out. And basically the entire family ends up dead except for May, who rescues his little sister, who Homer, who is the young vampire, young body vampire, old man, young body, but basically becomes obsessed with her. Like he wants his own. He turned May, and then she turned Caleb, who is our main character. And so Homer feels like he's lost May, and now he wants his own plaything, who is going to be Caleb's sister, who is approximately the same age as Homer. And May saves his sister, and
so therefore
they transfuse her.
The cure.
Yeah,
she gets to go stay at the barn vampire detox
in
spa.
the vampire vet office.
Yeah,
and she says she's only been a vampire for 4 years, so it's not like that big of a deal for her. You know, some of these people have been living as vampires so long.
Jesse has been a vampire since around the Civil War.
He fought for the South.
Yeah,
is what he said. And Homer is portrayed as being older than Jesse.
Yeah. And the other two, we don't really know. But
yeah, we know that Diamondback, who is Jesse's girl, played by Jeanette Goldstein, who is
she has some features that I know you appreciate.
But also I love her as an actress. She's in Aliens. That's a little thing here. Actually, I didn't write this up as a note. Half of the people in this movie are in the movie Aliens.
Oh, okay.
And basically, Catherine Bigelow, who directed this movie, what we said before. She was about to be going into a relationship with James Cameron. They were married for several years.
Yes.
And James Cameron she had helped on Aliens, and they were coming off Aliens, and he's like, look, this cast has chemistry. They've already worked together. Like, you should just get some of these people. And so they got Lance Henderson, who played Bishop in Aliens, Bill Paxton, who played, what the hell is his name? Game Over, Man. I don't know why I can't remember his name. And Jeanette Goldstein, who played Vasquez. So several.
You could be just making stuff up. I haven't seen that. So
and Joshua John Miller, who played Mr. Pringle's Fingers in Aliens. Everyone remembers Mr. Pringle's Fingers.
Yeah.
It was a weird tie-in in the 80s they did with Aliens. Just a character that just had Pringles for fingers.
Everybody knows it's Bugle's fingers.
No.
Pringle duck lips.
That was the thing. Pringles was trying to one-up Bugles.
That's the one thing that Bugles has, is that you can do the fingers.
So anyway, they got a bunch of people from Aliens to be in this movie, and she was also Jeanette Goldstein also played John Connor's mom, John Connor's adoptive mom in Terminator 2.
Okay.
Who gets killed by Terminator.
Okay.
So
can we talk about Bill Paxton for a second?
Yeah. Best part of this movie.
I have, and I think I have said this several times on the podcast, I find both him and Bill Pullman incredibly dull actors to the point that I get them mixed up. I can never remember who was who. This might change that because wow, was he fun?
Yes, I would,
scary.
I would suggest that you haven't seen enough early Bill Paxton movies.
Possibly.
Because his character in Aliens is very good, and Severin is very good.
He's like, I do not want to cross him, and I think it doesn't take much to cross him. It just takes being there.
Oh no, yeah.
There's no escaping him if he's wants to kill you.
Oh yeah, no.
But he was a lot of fun.
Oh, he's a ton of fun. We were kind of talking about ages. He's the one. So Jeanette Goldstein, Diamondback, she's been a vampire at least. She was turned because of a car gag that Jesse, who is the leader from the Civil War, he pretended to have a flat tire or something. And that's how he got her. So I'm going to guess if we're set in the time that the movie is filmed, so 87, probably the 60s, he turned her, 60s, 70s. It's been long enough that she can't remember. So 50s, 60s would be my guess on how long she's been turned. There's no indication of how long that Severin's been turned, except for there is a line where he says to Jesse, hey, remember when we set that fire in Chicago? So he's been a vampire at least as long as the Chicago fire.
I see that. My mind did not go there, but that is entirely possible.
They burn their RV because it's been made, or they assume that it's been made by people. So they burn their RV and they're standing around by the fire, and Severin says,
this seems like a very exhausting life. by the way.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
go around killing people every night. And they are not good stewards of these bodies, by the way.
No.
Like, I mean, I don't know how much blood the average human body has in it at a time, but I feel like they drink maybe like, they drink less than I give when I give blood.
Yeah.
Like, there's some good eating on that. You gotta, save it. And that's all they drink, and then they're fine.
Yeah, I would say they drink enough to be satisfied.
Yeah, but like one body, that's all you need. You can share. It's fine.
Yeah, you could, and they do at times. The probably the biggest noteworthy scene in this movie is the bar scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the one where all the clips come from and all the screen grabs and stuff, especially the ones of Bill Paxton.
Mm-hmm.
And they do kill a waitress and put her blood in a beer mug. And that is shared amongst May and Homer and I think Jesse.
But like, it's a beer mug. That's not very much.
Sure,
like,
sure.
The average, I could see what was coming there. She comes over and she brings a beer and a glass, and the guy says, "We just need the glass," and she's very confused. And then she's dead because they slice her neck open and they scoot her so her neck is over the glass, and
and they take care. Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, it's this movie. It's crazy. It's fast paced. It's just got a ton of quick moments in it, fun moments. Like you said, Severin is fun every time he's on screen. And like I said, everybody's got their gimmick, and his is that he dresses up like a cowboy dandy and basically stands at the side of the road pretending to hitchhike. I guess he's male prostituting. I don't know. And presumably that's how he gets his
Those
meals.
women seem stupid. I don't know. Maybe in 1997, hitchhiking was way more common.
87, but yeah.
What did I say?
97.
Okay, yeah. That's I don't know. I'm coming that's from a time when I've been told never pick up a hitchhiker.
And hitchhiking is used as a gag twice in this movie, and the second time that it's used, actually, I guess technically both times it's used, are examples of why you shouldn't hitchhike.
Yes.
Because the first time it's Severin picking up the two ladies that he presumably feeds on, and the second time it is Jesse and Diamondback stopping to pick up a couple of hitchhikers, a hitchhiker who ends up, it's an ambush, and things go poor for the hitchhikers.
Yeah.
But
can I tell you a story about hitchhiking?
Sure.
By the way, my parents, when they were first married and I was not here yet, lived in Iowa and would drive down to see my grandmother in St. Louis, a couple times a year. And at the time they had recycling in St. Louis. They didn't in Iowa where they were. My parents were sort of 70s hippies, so they were very into like save the earth type stuff. So they collected all their cans and bottles and things that were recyclable and trucked it down to my grandmother's when they went. They had, I believe, a VW Bug.
Wow.
So they are driving one time and they stop and pick up, I don't know if they were hitchhikers, but they were like, their car was broken down and they needed to ride to the next exit or something. But, strangers in the car. So these two people are stuck in the back seat with like 3 months worth of recycling.
And a bug.
Yes. And my mom is thinking, I'm sure they regret flagging us down. Wow. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
Jeez.
So yeah, sometimes the person who picks you up when you're hitchhiking is not exactly going to hurt you, but they're still weird.
Right. They're going to do damage, but it's not going to hurt you.
Bless my parents and their recycling. I applaud their commitment to recycling. Anyway, that's my hitchhiking story. Okay.
Nice.
See, even after almost 20 years, there are still things you don't know about me.
It's true.
Yeah.
Do you know my hitchhiking story?
No.
It's not actually a hitchhiking story. I wasn't hitchhiking.
Okay.
I was forcibly picked up. Not forcibly, but so I went to, I just moved to Raleigh to go to school, Raleigh, North Carolina, to go to school. And I needed a job. And I had a friend who worked at Circuit City about 10 minutes away from where I lived. So I went and applied there. And in the parking lot, my car broke down after the interview. And my friend wasn't there at the time, so I didn't have any way home. So I was like, you know what? I know it's not that far back home. Like, it's a 10-minute drive. How long could that walk be? It was like 2 or 3 miles.
Yeah.
Like, it was a 10-minute drive because it was a straight shot up a road. And so I start walking, and I get about a quarter of the way, and I'm on a sidewalk, and a car pulls over in like the next driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I had really long hair.
Oh boy.
And I was wearing like one of those 90s hoodies that were like, they looked like a canvas bag that like all the stoners wore in the 90s.
No, so you were clearly up to no good.
No. And I get up to the car and open the door, and the lady who's inside looks real surprised and then says, do you need a ride? And I was like, yeah. I'm just going up the street. She's like, oh, okay. And then we get in the car, and like 2 minutes into the drive, she's like, can I admit something to you? And I was like, sure. She's like, I thought you were my friend Janine. She has long hair just like yours and wears those sweatshirts. And I thought you were her, but then by the time I pulled over, I didn't feel like I could just drive away. And I was like, okay, well, if you're uncomfortable, you can just drop me off at the next like gas station or something. I said, but I'm literally going 1 more mile down this road if you can hold out. And so she drove me 1 more mile and dropped me off. She didn't take me all the way to my apartment, but like we got to a cross street, and I was like, this is close enough. Yeah. Like I was not hitchhiking. I was just walking, but it was raining. That was the thing. It was lightly raining. And I think she mentioned that too. She was like, once I saw you weren't her, I couldn't leave you in the rain. Like I was like, okay, well now you have a story where you picked up someone.
I was going to,
and they didn't kill you.
Call Janine after this and tell her. Actually, don't. That might be. I saw this guy and I thought he was you. Yeah, I have done that a few times. Stopped people when it was like pouring down rain. Or one time I stopped and there was a guy who I was on the way to your house actually. So you know this was a long time ago, and it had snowed and there was like 2 feet, and and where we are in the country, they don't shovel the sidewalks or even plow the roads really, so you're on your own. And I was like, if this is someone's plot to wait for a good Samaritan and shank them, like, well played. I don't, and both times it was fine.
I'm willing to bet my life on this one. That someone would just really have to be dedicated and almost feel like I want to give them a win here.
Yes.
If they went to all this trouble.
And both these times, of course, I told my mom later, and she was like, "Oh, Marion, that is not safe.
Did you have your recycling with you?
That is not."
No, I didn't.
It's gonna disarm people enough that they, even if they were gonna shank you, they won't now, because they're like, why does she have a back seat full of tin cans? That seems weird.
This is strange.
I don't get it. That's the reason I'm still alive, is the tin cans.
Yep. You gonna make it? You all right there?
It was so funny. I have to cough.
You gotta cough. All right, yeah. So Near Dark,
anyway,
dirty Western vampires.
Yeah. So hold on. Explain Western. Why that?
He's a freaking cowboy.
Okay.
Like it's a modern Western, right? Like the thing is, in the 80s, Westerns were not cool anymore. We had been through the Clint Eastwood, Man with No Name, all the stuff in the 50s and 60s, and we were done. Like the spaghetti Western. Italian Renaissance was over, and that was it. Westerns were not cool and would not be cool again until the 90s, after Unforgiven kind of deconstructed the Western or whatever. So Bigelow wanted to make a Western, a cowboy vampire movie, and setting it in modern times and doing it this way was kind of the only way. And it's but all of the trimmings in it are very vampire, or very Western. I mean, some of it explicitly so. Severin wears spurs that he uses to kill people. Everybody has a gun. There's a lot of 6-shooters, cowboy hats. It's set in Oklahoma and Texas. It's like the sun rises. Like there are all these nods to classic Westerns. So it's just it's like putting a pill and some peanut butter and feeding it to your dog. Like it's like it's a Western, but it's not, because Westerns weren't cool. Like you couldn't sell anybody an actual cowboy times vampire Western. So they did it this way.
So what I saw in this is not a Western necessarily, but it's way more about addiction.
Sure. Yeah.
Like as in, they're all on heroin or something, because the way that and I guess we only see Caleb experiencing this, not so much the other ones, but at some point, and we were not sure, is it he's not fed recently enough, something's going on with him, and he's all like sweaty and stomach hurts and whatever. It's very similar to what I understand is detoxing.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
which I imagine is not exactly a coincidence.
Probably not. I don't know how explicit that was, but it would be interesting to see. I've watched some interviews in the lead up to this with Bigelow and some other scholarly stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think the parallel is there, whether it was intended or not.
Yeah.
I think the stuff with him, I think that's him dying, quote unquote, vampire dying. That's been depicted in several other movies, or some version of that, of like effectively saying like, the transition from human to vampire is your body dying.
Well, that's true. That first time when he's going home.
Yeah, that's definitely then
I feel like we see that a couple times later though.
Yeah,
and
when he hasn't fed and that becomes his kind of thing of like, he doesn't want to kill, and he makes it through his first few cycles basically just by feeding off of May, who is killing people, and then allowing him to feed off of her. Mm-hmm. And Jesse is, put his foot down like basically, this. You got to carry your weight.
You don't hunt, you don't eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesse has a lot of like good, and also Jesse is like super a cowboy. Like he a villain in a cowboy movie. He's got all kinds of good sayings. They all do, Severn's got a lot of good ones. But yeah, it's got Western vibes. It's got addiction vibes. It's got broken family sort of vibes. Like, what is family? Because obviously the vampires are a family of circumstances, and Caleb has to choose between them and the vampires or the family of blood, real blood. True. So yeah. I mean, there are a lot of themes you can take away from it. I think it's kind of written that way to like insert and see a lot of different themes in there, for sure. Mm-hmm. So you were just saying like we don't really know what's happening with that. Like there are no rules to this, and they never say the word vampire. They hint, they tap dance around it, but they never say the word vampire. It's very intentional, to the point where I put up here not vampires, which I mean clearly they're vampires, but you never see fangs. Mm-hmm. They don't have any of the traditional weaknesses outside of sun, and we're assuming fire because that's how Severn dies. But crosses, garlic, none of that running water, silver.
I was trying to remember, could we see them in mirrors? I think you can.
Yeah, and it's certainly not explicit one way or the other.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not a Fright Night situation or a Lost Boys situation where you're coming in with a vampire test. Both of those movies have vampire test scenes.
Well, I was this is not it's Scream. They're kind of like, that's the trope, is that we're going to exposit all the rules of horror movies, and a lot of vampire movies, they kind of do that too, and there is none of that. So you just have to, if you don't know what's going on, you're going to be lost.
Yeah. And the thing is, it doesn't need to tell you these rules because none of them are relevant.
Yeah.
So but that's the thing. If you write the movie in the way that none of this stuff becomes relevant, because if you go into all the lore of vampires, all the folklore of vampires, like, there's running water, inviting them inside, silver, garlic, like there's all kinds of stuff.
I didn't know running water was...
Yeah, they can't cross running water.
Okay.
There's just all kinds of stuff.
These vampires are super strong, or they certainly seem to be.
They have superhuman strength. Like sleeping in the soil of your homeland. Like there's all kinds of things that a lot of movies like are bringing in from that European lore that this movie, it doesn't need it. And so it doesn't concern itself with it. And that's brilliant that it just doesn't care. The rule, like I said, the rules are super loose. All you need to know is sun is basically the worst thing. They heal at an increased rate. Conventional weapons really don't pose any threat to them. And it's great. It's great to just see a movie that isn't so obsessed with having to figure out a way to a scene where, May has to go, listen, you're different now. There's going to be some rules you got to follow. This is how it goes. Like the only thing he's got to understand is you got to feed every day and the sun will kill you. and that's pretty much it. You know, they might not even know that fire can kill them, depending on how much experience they have with other vampires. Like, have there been others in the group that have died from fire? How much are they being taught by the people who turn them?
I wondered at some point, somebody was they all smoke, but somebody was lighting a cigarette, you know, with a lighter, and I was like, oh wait, but that's a tiny amount, so is that, you know.
I don't think they're necessarily afraid of fire, and fire is not the same as the sun.
Mm-hmm.
They burn when exposed to the sun.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was an interesting effect. The first time that we see any indication of the sun being damaging is when Caleb has just been bitten and he's sort of stumbling home across this field, and he's kind of steaming, and it's really early in the morning, and so you could think, well, that's just what the farmland does in the morning. Right. It's like dew, but in reverse, like it was, you know. And it's not ever clear. And, you know, it could, like you said, it could be umpteen things at that point. But then we see that with a couple of other folks later, and it's like they're boiling.
Yeah, it's a good effect.
And it's neat. It's nicely done. And I like, honestly, that if you're a vampire, there's a little bit of a warning system. Like, for example, today I have a sunburned arm. I would have liked if there'd been a little bit of a warning.
Right.
My arm steamed just a little bit, and I could be like, "Oh, let's get in the shade." I really didn't think it was going to burn, and now, like, it's there's a very stark line where my sleeve was.
Quite.
But at the beginning, when you see Caleb, you're not sure what it is, so it's very moody, and I like that.
If you don't know, like, a lot of people would have gone into this movie not knowing this was a vampire movie.
Mm-hmm.
If I've watched the trailer a couple times. You know, it doesn't say we're redefining vampires or anything like that. It's just, you know, here it is. Yeah. And so it could sneak up on you, and then you're sitting there waiting, and it's that sort of winking and nodding thing of like, it isn't even like when something's copyrighted and you can't use it, you know, like that, where you're saying like, you know, oh, these guys have magical coins and they can turn into warriors and summon big robots that assemble together to their super transforming guys. You know, like, it's not even like you're trying to be legally, you know, distinct from like somewhere in the middle ground there.
You're talking about bootlegging?
Yeah, no. We just watched that Chip and Dale movie.
Which highly recommend, by the way. Totally. Like, if you have kids, if you don't, it's quite good.
We had just gone through the whole season of all the seasons of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers like 6 or 8 months before. And so it was perfect timing.
With our kid, by the way, not of our own volition.
Oh, I would have sat and done it.
I would not. I was getting pretty tired of them by the end. Show. But the movie is well worth your time.
And it's got a bootlegging subplot. Yeah. So yeah, you could have gone into this not knowing about vampires. Oh, excuse me. And they never mentioned vampires. It wouldn't have been, but yeah, if you're in the know about vampires, they're like, you know, it's vampires. We're not saying it's vampires, but you know, it's vampires. But
I'm envisioning the guy from the History Channel with the hair. I'm not saying it was vampires, but it was vampires.
Vampires. Yeah. I don't know how much more there's to talk about. I got a couple more talking points I wanted to hit on. The biggest one for me is Tangerine Dream, the sort of electronic psychedelic band from the 70s, 80s, and beyond. They were big into doing film soundtracks in the 80s. They did a bunch of Michael Mann movies. They famously did Legend, the Ridley Scott movie that he then put a John Williams soundtrack on in the rest of the world. They did the soundtrack for this, and it's just all great, like synth stings and just like wacka wacka wang, like it's one of those soundtracks that works well in the movie. And so often I'd be like, oh, let's take a listen, but there's nothing to play, like, because it's all just like 3 or 4 seconds of beep 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 boom, you know, just cool synth sounds, but it's all over. And the only thing they have is they have Naughty Naughty by John Parr in there in the bar scene.
Oh yeah.
They have that in there. But but yeah, it's the music is great, but like I would struggle to even find. There's certainly no iconic things from it, like what I could play from like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or a lot of those other movies. But yeah, it's just it fits well because it's this juxtaposition. Because this should have been they should have gotten John Carpenter for some hobo music, just wow on the a little
or like some with the cowboy whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. I can't do it. But yeah. Like it could have just been strumming an acoustic guitar and harmonica.
Yeah. Because there was legit a tumbleweed at some point.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? Like,
and also you're saying like what's Western? Like he literally rides his horse into the final battle.
Yeah.
And there's a tumbleweed. But yeah, it's the Tangerine Dream soundtrack. Like they were just firing on all cylinders, and they weren't producing bangers. Like the banger of all bangers when it comes to Tangerine Dream is, was it Loved by the Sun from Legend? Amazing song. We'll hear that when we do the Legend episode.
Would have fit well here too, except Hated by the Sun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They could have done a remix. But yeah, Tangerine Dream. Like I actually put the soundtrack on the other day, and I was like, I'm gonna find something to play, and it's all just like,
yeah.
If it was being subtitled on television, it would just be like indistinct synth music.
Yeah,
like it's perfect, but it's also not memorable at all.
Yeah. You were talking about the bar scene. There was the Bill Paxton character just a lot of times made me giggle at just how gleeful he was about the killing he was about to do.
Yes.
They've identified this bar, I guess, as in they know they're going to go in there and kill everybody, and and then they burn it down after they've
it's out of the way dive bar.
Yeah. And they barge in the door, and he just kind of yells, "Hello, shit kickers," which is an insult that I have only ever heard in the writing of Molly Ivins. I think it's very distinct to Texas. I think they were in Kansas at that point, but still that like Southern Kansas, like just sort of North Texas through Oklahoma through Southern Kansas. But yeah, just how you doing, shit kickers? I just like the glee with which he says that was just delightful.
Yeah. Unlike Caleb, who was having a hard time transitioning into killing people. Yeah. Severin has long since learned to view people as food and has learned to take some joy in the killing.
Well, and Jesse is just kind of businesslike about it. And the other two, we don't see them feeding all that much. So it's hard to tell how they feel about it.
Yeah. I mean, May seems to be somewhat reluctant, but okay with it. And Homer is just, you don't get a good read on him. But obviously he's been doing it longer than anybody. So, and I think Diamondback just enjoys like the gameplay of it.
Yeah.
Like Jesse does this kind of dance where he's sort of, because Jesse and Diamondback are together, where he sort of, flirts with the waitress, and then Diamondback cuts her throat, there's a whole interplay with them.
You mentioned earlier they pick up a hitchhiker intending to feed on the hitchhiker, and then whoops, the hitchhiker is planning something for them.
Yeah.
And now they've both got guns to their heads between the hitchhiker and his pal. And the hitchhikers are being very menacing and imagining what they're going to do. And Jesse and Diamondback have these like not too subtle grins on their faces. And they're like, ho, 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 ho.
Oh, yeah. And you
don't know what's going to happen.
You get the idea that they sniffed out that ambush from a mile away.
Oh, yeah.
But like they stopped for this guy because they knew what was up, because I'm sure they've pulled this exact same, thing for years. So yeah, like you got the idea that they were not only ready for this, but expecting it and looking forward to it.
Yeah. They never had to change their plan because their plan was the same the whole time.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, it's fun to watch it because it is, it's that sort of thing of like, once you can transition into that idea of, this is just food. Like a lot of people make food fun.
Yeah.
They make the process of preparing it fun. They make the process of eating it fun, and that's all they're doing. That they're just making it fun.
You can totally see Severin having a show on Vampire Food Network,
right? Yeah.
Or like he has a vampire Instagram.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Here's my feed from this evening. notice how I took some blood from the neck and then from the artery in the leg. Many
Right.
people neglect that artery, but that's some good blood there.
Yeah.
Well, and he did have he's about to feed on a guy who has got some stubble. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, I hate it when they're not shaven.
Hate it when they ain't shaved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got great intimidation. It's like we talked about with Freddy, needing to scare people, needing to kill them when they're scared, stuff like that. Like he doesn't have to, but he just enjoys working somebody up right before he kills them. He messes with the bartender, and the reality of it is, whether they feed or not, everybody in there has to die.
Yeah.
Because they're at this point leaving like a trail of destruction behind them. So they can't really afford for anybody to get away. Someone does get away, and it leads to one of the cooler scenes of the movie where they're stuck in a little hotel room, or it's like a bungalow. It's like off to itself. It's a single room. And the cops come because this guy gets away from the bar, and the cops are like firing all these automatic weapons. And, it's not, of course, the weapons themselves aren't doing anything, but there's all these blasts, holes getting blasted, and the light that's shining in is hurting them.
Kind of neat. And you see these like spots of burning show up on them because there's just that much sun getting in. That was kind of neat. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. The whole, like, it's very well thought out. And even the point, like, the whole shootout starts by Severin shooting a hole with a shotgun through the door. He blows the guts out of the cop who's on the other side, and the sun that comes through the hole blows him back into the next room. Like, just a really cool cause and effect.
For the rest of the movie, he's got that part is burned out of his shirt.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff. Like, just the blood is on Jesse's collar for the rest of the movie where he got bit. The different Jesse gets shot in the gut and his shirt is torn at certain points. And just like when I was watching this movie as a kid, like the vampires were all just so cool. Like, I mean, Severin goes without saying. He's got a leather jacket, he's got cowboy boots with spurs, and he kills somebody by cutting their throat with his spurs. And he's got all wears sunglasses at one point, and he's got kind of wild greasy hair. And even like Homer, who's just a kid, he's wearing like several layers, and he's got a hood, like a hooded sweatshirt, and he just looks like he's just got a look, like a very good look about him. I don't know if I'd say he's cool, but he's got a very distinct silhouette. I don't know. His silhouette to me reads gets bullied a lot on the playground. Sure, maybe, but it was still a distinct silhouette.
Well, sure.
And like Jesse, like when he says he fought for the South, like his attire like makes sense because he's wearing like extremely dirty, but like a white long sleeve undershirt with suspenders. Like he is dressed like someone from like a farmer from the 1800s.
Well, and he just looks like it because he's sort of sinewy and got sort of leathery tan skin, and like you could see him.
He's got the gnarly scar.
Yeah, it looks like it's like a keyhole scar around his eye, and then a cut down his cheek. It's like someone tried to cut out his eyeball. It's gnarly.
Yeah, it's great. And that's, I don't know if that's actually on Lance Henriksen's face or not. That was added for the movie, because it's really good if it was just added for the movie. And I just, for whatever reason, I'm having trouble picturing his face without the scar. So I'm thinking like, okay, remember Bishop, like remember all these other roles that he played. He plays another really good sort of backwoods type character in Pumpkinhead, which we might end up watching Pumpkinhead at some point. And he looks very similar in Pumpkinhead actually to this character. But yeah, they just all look so, and Diamondback just has a cool look, like dyed hair with roots and like, multiple layers, like a kind of like an 80s, just, I don't know what it is about
it's
her.
a little bit steampunk. Almost, before steampunk was a thing.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
And décolletage, which I know you like.
What is that?
Cleavage.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Don't mind if I do. And then May is just wearing like her costume, like her very specific farm girl outfit. But yeah, it's just the production on this. Like, you can tell this was, I think, Catherine Bigelow's first movie that she directed solo. She had co-directed a movie before this, and you can tell that she is in the orbit of people like James Cameron and other experienced filmmakers. And not to take anything away from her, because I would give most of the credit to her for how this movie looks and everything. But the reason I say that is because she's performing so far beyond her years in this, like with all of the silhouettes and all of the way things are shot and the colors and the just the way things look, like the way night looks. And like, I don't want to, like I said, I don't mean to take anything away from her, but she worked with good, no. Like, she's an amazing filmmaker. She was then, she is now. I'm saying, like, she worked with amazing people. In addition to everything that she had to bring, like, I am giving her credit for this movie 100%.
Okay, good. Because it's to say, oh, well, she learned a lot from her husband, who I think is known to be sort of an egotistical nightmare.
No. Like, they weren't even together at the time. But no, I'm saying, like, you can tell that she was sort of in with the right people. Like, you take a first-time director who has, because she comes from an art background, like a visual arts background. So you take, and I guess this is what I'm trying to articulate and failing at. You take someone with vision like her, and you put her with the right director of photography and the right cinematographer who can help. She can describe the vision, and they can help make it come true. That's what I'm trying to say, is that, like, everything about this movie is her, from her brain, but she was given the opportunity to work with the right people who at that point in her career could help her bring that stuff to the, to the, it's like Ridley Scott is nothing without the right cinematographers and the right director of photography, Ari Aster, like any of these guys, like, they need the right people working with them, especially early in their career. Like, you don't emerge into Hollywood and make a first film like this. Yeah, like, she carried the creative aspect of it 100%. And you can see, like, it's so many of the shots are like paintings. Like, you can see a painter's brain at work with the color interplay and the way things are lit. You can see that that's all coming from someone who's very experienced and very creative in the art realm, and, like, getting that to bring that to the screen and getting the right people to help bring it to the screen. Like, it just, they punched way above their weight. This was like a $5 million movie or something at the time. Like, and I guess the last point actually kind of ties into that. Like, this movie didn't do very well. Like, it made like $3 million or something at the box office, but it was because of our old friend, the De Laurentises, from Flash and all these other movies that we've watched. You're going to notice the De Laurentises, the Dino in particular, was involved in a lot of, small to medium budget movies in the 80s and 70s. And so they're going to pop up a lot. And in this one, I think this movie was made, and then after it was wrapped, but before it was released, the DEG, the De Laurentiis in Entertainment group, went out of business. And so it didn't have a lot of promotion. It didn't have a lot of anything. Bigelow was not a name as a director. Your boy Adrian was not a big star. Even somebody like Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen, like, these were not enough of names to, like, get it out there and, like, get the movie a lot of press. So it ended up kind of flying under the radar. It was available on video. It had an amazing VHS cover. I'll try to tweet it out. And it got some DVD releases in the 90s and maybe early 2000s, and then it just kind of disappeared because the rights just sort of faded away. So no one was printing DVDs of this, and there was basically no chance that it would be on streaming. And I think Studio Canal, maybe someone else, ended up getting a hold of the rights, and it just came to Shudder. And I know they've had some special edition DVD releases over the last, like, 10 years or so, but I'm hoping for something else. There's a lot of these companies. What's the one? Vinegar something. And there's anyway, there are several of these big companies that do these extended DVD releases for, like, B movies and stuff, like these huge releases with special commentaries and documentaries and stuff. And I'm hoping to see something like that for this movie. yeah, so fingers crossed. But yeah, for a long time, you just could not watch this movie. It was just lost to time. Either you owned a DVD copy or Blu-ray copy, you were willing to pay upwards of $100 for one on the secondary market, or VHS, or you were just out of luck. Like no one was streaming it, no one was showing it on regular television, and it's just awesome that it's back. And I think that's one of the things that people don't think about with media. Is especially small media that comes from these B-movie and lower tier companies. These companies disappear. The rights don't necessarily get bought up by anybody. I mean, if MGM is for sale, somebody's going to buy MGM, and like all of the MGM movies are going to survive. 20th Century Fox, these places are going to get bought, and these libraries are going to survive. But when you have these things like this, or you have stories like about Dogma, how the Weinsteins own that because Miramax wouldn't put it out, and the rights for that, like there's probably never going to be a DVD release for that unless Kevin Smith can get the rights back somehow. That sort of stuff just exists in this weird limbo, and it's this whole digital preservation thing that me as someone who plays a lot of video games, that exists there as well. But to see it in movies really sucks because like it's a movie. Like at some point it was released on a tape cassette or a Laserdisc or a Blu-ray. Like it shouldn't be almost impossible to watch in 2022.
Yeah, I am vaguely uncomfortable with this transition that we've done where 20 years ago for sure, maybe even 10, people owned physical copies of a lot of things. Movies, music, books even. And now so much of it is digital. And most of it is like you don't even own it. It's a subscription service, which means if you don't keep paying, oh, sorry, you don't own it anymore. And that makes me feel really uncomfortable. Probably if I were 20 years younger, I'd be like, well, that's just the way it is.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't like it.
It is interesting. And it actually has this movie popping back up on availability on streaming actually did cause me to start looking through some of these sites that do these special edition releases and thinking like, okay, are there any other movies that I want to have and own, and thinking like, I want to build like a small collection of 50, 60 of my favorite movies so that I have physical copies so that they can never go away. Even if they are from these big studios, I never want to lose track of them like I lost track of this, because if you go back to the Fright Night episode, I'm talking about this movie and it's like a pivotal movie that redefined the way that I look at vampires in cinema. I want to be able to watch that whenever I want to watch that.
Yep. I
don't want to have to depend on the rights being in limbo and maybe coming back or maybe not, which is what happened literally over the life of this podcast. That is what's happened with this movie. In the first, year of this podcast or whatever, it was like, well, we'll never see that. And now here we are 40 episodes later saying like, hey, it's out now. And we're actually watching it, that's, and you're right. Owning physical media, you've got the ultimate physical media obsession, which is books.
Yeah.
Me personally, I buy a lot of video games. I've got well over 2,000 video games digitally. I don't technically own a single one of them. I've invested in purchasing games from storefronts that are now defunct, where I just cannot get those games. And that's like that. Digital is ethereal. It's finite. It's not real. It's not physical.
And because we love to do a good, social critique, that is probably the capitalist system encourages you to have digital things, so you don't really own them. So you have to keep paying in order to access them. Yeah.
And it's kind of a, you have to assume that they've done the calculation, because you would think like, okay, well, if they keep releasing a new format every 10 years, then you'd have to rebuy everything on the new format. But Blu-ray's been around for a while, DVD's been around for a while. So man, they're like, we haven't really released a new physical media format in a while. And maybe there's not one on the horizon. So we got to make the shift to digital and make all this physical stuff a lot harder to come by, so that people have to stay subscribed to
We can make a net profit of X amount once when they buy the DVD, or money every time they want to watch it.
Right. And now they're all of the companies are all in bed with a streaming platform of choice. I mean, HBO is in the Warner family,
that's a whole other, yeah.
and Hulu and all these. Paramount has its own. So yeah, like every single one of them now has their own streaming platform, so it's even less reason for them to make physical releases.
Well, joke's on you. I've hit my limit when it comes to streaming services. There are shows that I hear are really good, but they're not available on one of the, it feels like a dozen streaming services that we have access to. So I'm like, well, sorry, I'm not signing up for anything else.
Yeah, yeah. As a lifelong Star Trek fan, I don't care how good Picard or Strange New Worlds or whatever is, I'm not subscribing to Paramount Plus. I'm sorry.
I've hit my limit.
Yeah, same.
I used to say, I'm sorry, I've hit my limit for logins and passwords. And that's not it, because now I have, a login for my freaking doctor's office. Like, I've seen the light there. But, no, I have enough streaming services. Yeah. I heard great things about Kevin can go fuck himself. But turns out it's on AMC Plus. I was like,
yes.
Okay, no. At some point, I will be able to see it, but today is not that day.
Now, that said, I did subscribe to Shudder just to watch this movie. So,
of course you did.
Forget everything we just said, because we are just, if you give us the right movie under the right circumstance,
our ideals crumble.
Yes, we will step aside and push our ideals off a cliff.
They crumble like a vampire in the sun. That doesn't really crumble, but
I couldn't.
It's like charcoal.
Yeah, I couldn't subscribe fast enough to Shudder. I trampled over my principles on the way there.
That's a years long craving.
Well, yeah. Well, and also I use Shudder for Halloween movies and stuff in the past.
Which is I've done 5 months.
I'm saying I've done like a 1 month subscription to Shudder.
Oh, okay.
During October to do Halloween, or like a 3 month subscription. So yeah, re-upping it. It's like Shudder as a service is not something that I'm new to. Like I didn't. There's a reason that I knew it came to Shudder, because I look through the movies on Shudder every now and then. So yeah, like it's not a long term thing, but
interesting. Okay, have to bring that up with the household accountant.
All right. Anything else? You got any more thoughts?
No. I enjoyed this way more than I expected to.
Yeah. And it's vampires like in 1987, you hadn't really seen them. Mm-hmm. Now I'm sure I haven't seen True Blood, but I'm sure this would have a lot in common with that, dirty swamp vampires or whatever.
Maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, like it's just, it moves quick. The love story is the weakest part of it. The transfusion stuff is just bad. Like there's no excusing it. It's not bad enough to ruin the rest of it though. But yeah,
and it's so quick and it's at the end.
Yeah, it's out of nowhere. So. Yeah, and for the movie to end on like a love embrace by Caleb and May, when that's been like at best 10% of the movie has been their love story. Like it's not been given enough screen time for it to be like this Romeo Juliet.
I sort of wonder in like a month, are they going to look at each other and go, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go now.
Yeah. Like presumably May is 17 or something.
Yeah.
So, she probably has to go back to school because she said that Homer got her.
Now that she's human again. Yeah.
Yeah. Like she said she was a senior in high school, and he pretended to be a fifth grader who needed help with his homework. So yeah, it's like presumably she got to go back to high school.
I did like the last line though. She's in the barn detox center, and had this transfusion, and she sort of wakes up when he comes in, and she's a little scared because there's sunlight streaming in the door, and he says, "Don't be afraid, it's just the sun," is just. It's a nice ending to it.
Sure. Because she said she had basically forgotten what it looked like after 4 years of being a vampire.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really fun movie, and since it is available now, yeah, you should watch it. Watch it in the entire vampire trifecta, triple play of Lost Boys, Fright Night, and this.
And then take a shower, because seeing all these people sweat will make you. Yeah.
Like that was the other thing too with this movie. Yeah, it's like. In a lot of movies, like that's actually a thing. It's like vampires don't sweat. Like they don't. Like they're elegant. They don't. They don't perspire. They don't get dirty. And then this movie was just like screw all that. Yeah. Like these vampires are the dirtiest. Like they are grimy, dirty vampires.
They do not bother with deodorant.
Yeah, no. Why would? Yeah, it's it's stanking at RV.
Oh,
like that RV. Yeah. That must have been horrible.
Yeah.
Like,
Ugh.
yeah. But anyway, yeah. So I think that's going to do it.
I think that is. I think that's it. I think that's Near Dark. Folks, we would love to know what you think about this. Do you remember watching this when it came out or earlier? Have you caught it on streaming? Are you wondering what the heck we're talking about? Well, you should go to Shudder and find it because this is a good time. You can get in touch with us a couple different ways. You can email us, you can tweet at us, or you can contact on Facebook. Our handle is the same for all of them. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can tweet at us, you can send us an email at gmail.com or find our Facebook page. And on both the Twitter feed and the Facebook feed, there's always links to the newest episodes. Plus, you can let us know what you thought of them or ask us questions, like, where's the cat this time? She stayed under the table. She was kind of walking around, but she wasn't very rambunctious.
Not too disruptive.
She did manage to get her shirt off, by the way. Dave, she wears a shirt sometimes, but she can always wriggle out of it. So she did that, but she did it quietly, so she didn't disturb us.
Good job.
For cat updates, you can check the Twitter and the Facebook feeds. Those do not go to your major podcast providers, but new episodes do. So you can check any of them, specifically Apple Podcasts. We would love it if you would subscribe or follow or whatever the parlance is, and you'll always get the latest episode right in your queue. We would also love it if you would rate and review, let other people know how much you love the podcast, please, how much you love it.
Yes.
And also tell your friends. We've got a pretty solid back catalog at this point. If you're thinking, Fright Night, what's that? Well, you can find that episode too.
Yep.
All sorts of things. We have new episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode right in your queue. And 2 weeks from today, I am hosting and I'm going to be showing Dave Working Girl.
All right.
So tune in 2 weeks for Working Girl. Until then, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.